To have this program included in your learning record, you must watch it to the end.
He propositioned a care worker one day in the car on the way home from his outing out, and I wonder if she reminded him of my mum, and because she does look quite similar to my mum.
Well, certainly. I'm lucky so far because I can communicate if I'm in pain or if I've got a UTI or I'm got a headache, but I'm dreading the day when I lose the words, because how am I going to tell someone I've got a headache and I need to go and lie down somewhere quiet and dark? Or how am I going to be able to tell someone I've got toothache? How am I going to tell someone when I've got no longer those words? Someone's going to have to observe me and really understand how I look.
A person with dementia doesn't just lose their car keys. They'll often lose the right words to express themselves, lose the ability to follow instruction or remember a friend's name, or recognise a care worker who may have visited many times. And how they behave will change as they try to cope with these losses.
I went to the Prime Minister's department and worked there, heading up the Science and Technology division and advising the Prime Minister on science and technology. And then I got diagnosed with dementia. So then I left. Frontotemporal dementia also has changed my general demeanour. I used to be calm, cool and collected at work, and now I'm more anxious, more manic. I can swear if things go wrong. I really struggle sometimes to get words out and get very angry.
My mother passed away in 2006. And it was shortly after her death that we noticed some subtle changes in Dad's behaviour. He became extremely forgetful. He was frustrated because he couldn't find his car keys or he couldn't find his diary. There was always something, and it just seemed to get worse and worse over time.
In this program, we will look at some common ways that a person's behaviour may change as they adapt to living with dementia. We'll look at what dementia is and why it may be causing that person to behave differently. And we'll discuss how you can respond to best support that person. People with dementia often become increasingly confused as their short-term memory deteriorates. They can become agitated and may behave more aggressively than they used to. People with dementia are more likely to experience depression than the general population. And why wouldn't you be depressed if you had to live with the issues imposed on you by dementia? They're more prone to hallucinations where they hear or see something that isn't there, or delusions where they believe something that clearly isn't true. This is more evident in those who have dementia with Lewy bodies. Dementia can cause some people to behave in sexually or socially inappropriate ways. They may wander or may experience evening restlessness where they become confused agitated or restless in the late afternoon or early evening. Dementia is not a normal part of aging, and it's not one specific disease. Dementia describes a collection of symptoms, all of which are caused by a range of disorders affecting the brain. Different parts of the brain control different functions. So as the brain degenerates, so do the abilities of the person with dementia. Dementia can affect the person's ability to judge distance and to know where they are in relation to other objects. This can result in frequent falls. Their ability to read, write, and do even simple calculations can disappear. And they can lose their sense of touch, or their ability to express pain, or even to recognize where the pain is coming from. Their personality may be affected. Their vision can deteriorate, and they may not be able to recognize the size, or shape, or color of objects. And they can lose their short-term memory and language skills. And later on in the disease, their longer-term memory may also be affected.
The memory problems I have now are, I probably won't remember tonight what happened today, even if it seems quite unusual, what might be happening, like giving a talk or whatever.
When we first started having the care workers come, he went through quite a lot of paranoia initially, with having new faces coming and going all the time. He wanted everything hidden. He wanted to make sure that his wallet was in a really safe place.
How the person's behaving may be a direct result of the changes happening in their brain, or they may be reacting to something in the environment or in themselves. If you can find out what they may be reacting to, you might be able to reduce their distress and reduce their behaviour. Work with the person, the family and the care team to build up a picture of why the person may be behaving differently and what helps to reduce that behaviour. Record your observations in the progress notes. What was happening right before the behaviour occurred? Who was involved? Who was affected by the behaviour? What was done about it, and did it work? When you're looking for triggers, there are 5 main factors to consider: health, history, environment, task, and communication. Let's take a look at how someone's health and well-being can influence how they behave.
Certainly, I'm lucky so far because I can communicate if I'm in pain or if I've got a UTI or I'm got a headache, but I'm dreading the day when I lose the words, because how am I going to tell someone I've got a headache and I need to go and lie down somewhere quiet and dark? Or how am I going to be able to tell someone I've got toothache? How am I going to tell someone when I've got no longer those words? Someone's going to have to observe me and really understand how I look.
I see differences in Dad's behaviour when he's sick. If he gets a cold, it can just be a simple head cold, and we will notice a decline in his behaviour.
Report any signs or symptoms of illness or changes in behaviour to your supervisor. They can organise a medical review and get the treatment that may be needed. Medication issues can also cause increased confusion, agitation, depression, or hallucinations. So encourage the person to take their medications correctly and inform your supervisor if they're not taking them. If their medications are changed, document and report any changes in behaviour, since they may be caused by the new medication. Dehydration can cause confusion, agitation, and hallucinations, and people with dementia often forget to drink, so offer them fluids regularly.
It's important to keep his sugar levels even. If for whatever reason he doesn't have, say, his morning tea, he becomes irritable, and all of those behaviours that he's susceptible to are there and become quite bad at times.
If someone's susceptible to evening restlessness, limit the amount of stimulating food and drink, such as sugary treats and caffeine. Physical discomfort can cause a variety of behaviours. Someone may take their clothes off in public places if they feel overheated or restricted by tight clothing.
Well, the girls really prompt him what to wear for the day, but if the carers are out and they've gone out in the morning and it's cold, as the day warms up, he's walking around with a jumper on and they notice he's agitated, prompt him to take the jumper off and dress to suit the weather.
You all right?
Yep.
A person with dementia may urinate in public because they need the toilet and they've forgotten how to use it or where it is, and they may wander trying to find it. So assist them to toilet regularly. Make sure the toilet is well signed with either words or pictures. Or even better, leave the toilet door open. When the door's closed, the person may not remember what's behind it. Poor vision and hearing can add to someone's confusion and make them more likely to hallucinate. Help the person to keep their glasses and hearing aids clean and well maintained, and encourage the person to use them.
It's hard to see the floor properly. I mean, I see the floor, but if the floor suddenly changes colour or it's got a wavy pattern, if I'm not looking down at my feet, it looks like a step or a bumpy carpet. And stairs, it's very hard to keep judging the height of the tread. But I've recently discovered wearing coloured shoes really helps if I'm out, like bright red shoes. I can sort of see them in my visual field.
When Ernie's tired, he becomes agitated, but can't work out why he's agitated, and he'll often pace.
If I can get him to have a rest in the afternoon, I find that he's much better going into that sundowning period, and he's not as agitated during that time. But it is hard sometimes to get him to rest during the day. Getting him to actually go to sleep helps immensely.
Helping someone maintain their health and physical comfort can ease distress that may be changing the way they behave. Since short-term memory is affected before long-term memory, people with dementia often believe they're living in a different time in their lives.
Some of the behaviours that Ernie would display would be he'd forget that this was his home, and he'd reflect back to when he used to live at Westmead and pack his bag and want to go back home. To distract that, we often start to talk about his history, his football history. Once you start talking about Ernie's history and football, he gets really involved.
And we came out and we won the first game, which was good.
And loves to share those stories with you of the grand finals and who he played football with.
If people confuse their present with their past, they may not recognise people in their lives, and this can cause distress and change behaviour. You can use photos with labels to help remind them. Someone with dementia may confuse a care worker with someone from their past.
He propositioned a care worker one day in the car on the way home from his outing out, and I wonder if she reminded him of my mum, and because she does look quite similar to my mum.
If someone with dementia confuses you with a family member and starts to act inappropriately, report it to your supervisor. They may need to schedule another care worker. In other situations, though, if the person thinks they know you, it might help to go along with it. It could be reassuring for them. It's important to know what works for each individual, so you have to get to know their history.
It's very important to know who we are as a person and what our life story is, so that you can connect as a care worker with what is meaningful for us. The environment has a huge impact on people with dementia, and because, for example, a very noisy environment just clangs about inside our head, and it's just agitated, makes us feel agitated and tired and wanting to go away from the noise.
The vacuum cleaner, the noise of the vacuum cleaner can annoy him at times. What they would do is ask him to go and do something else, maybe water his vegetable garden while they're vacuuming the floors.
Do what you can to ensure the person can see things clearly in their environment. Shadows can be confusing for someone with dementia and can cause hallucinations, so keep the area well lit. Use items that contrast with their surroundings to make them easier to locate.
Look at things like mirrors. They can confuse because they just reflect things and make things look very confusing. So maybe a cloth over a mirror. Bathrooms can be just way too white and not really very distinctive as to where everything is.
I try and just keep it as neat as I can for him, because it's hard enough for him to find his keys or find his wallet, even in a neat environment, let alone an environment that's full of clutter and bits and pieces.
I wouldn't want a care worker coming in and reorganising my house, because we would be dependent on where everything is. So it's a question of doing it, thinking it through, being sensible, because if you moved our favourite chair, well, we're going to sit down and it won't be there. I'd prefer it if the care worker spoke to my family and then maybe we worked on it together.
Simplifying the environment can help someone with dementia cope. So can simplifying the task.
Life is indeed very complex and very difficult, very hard, and each task does seem overwhelming. And it's because we have to do everything step by step.
One of the things that we've put in place for Ernie is the care worker and Ernie cook the evening meal for Shari. So with the labelling of the kitchen cupboards, that's helped Ernie. The care worker will come in and I'll ask him to get the equipment out and prompt him all the way through. He really responded to that activity, and there wasn't any behaviours while he was active.
He gets a lot out of that. It makes him feel capable and like he's contributing and making a difference.
If someone's further down the track than I am and they want to participate in, it's meaningful for us to participate in an activity. We might not be able to do a great deal, but we could hold some of the ingredients while a meal is being cooked. It makes us part of an activity, and it's tactile and it's important. We're not just watching as passive observers, which so often happens to people with dementia.
I find that the wandering tends to happen when he doesn't have anything to do. So it's just making sure, getting organised. I used to do myself a list and put a list on the whiteboard of things that he could do throughout the day.
Demonstrating, that's part of working alongside. So let's say we're going to plant a plant. Well, you demonstrate one of the little pots and you take it out and you dig a little hole and you put the plant in and give us a pot to hold, and we might start doing it, but don't force us, but just give us the implements and then show us what to do. If we get it wrong, don't ever correct us. Even if we put the plant in upside down, don't correct us. Everything is valuable because we've done it ourselves.
Think of ways you can simplify tasks.
And you'll need a spoon.
Choice is very hard. You need actually a lot of space in your head to make a choice, because you've got to have clear ideas of all the various options, and then you've got to be able to weigh them up and choose from them. So what Paul will do, for example, is just say, would you like a cup of coffee or tea? And that's, I can cope with. Makes us feel in control of our own lives in the decision making. Decisions and choice are very important, however small they are.
he'll often ask, what am I doing? Where am I going? What's happening today? So they'll refer to the whiteboard, which gives them the weekly activities. And once they've read the whiteboard to him, he seems quite happy with that and settles and moves on.
Sometimes Paul's gone out and I've forgotten he's out, and then I start looking for him. So I go and look in the shed, I go and look in the garage. So we've bought this clock type thing where he can say, I will be back by whatever.
People with dementia often forget the care worker's coming, and they may not recognise you when you get there.
When the new care worker came to the door, it was actually really quite alarming because the doorbell went. I'd forgotten, of course, that a care worker was coming. Because Paul had told me about it, but had gone out. Doorbell goes, and someone's standing at my doorstep. I just couldn't recognise her face, and she looked a bit similar to someone else that I know, and I couldn't quite place her at all.
Always wear your uniform and your name badge to help them recognise where you're from. Introduce yourself and tell them where you're from and why you're there, every time.
Hello, I'm Sally from Max Community Care.
Something I find very difficult is when a care worker comes and says, what do you want me to do? How would I know? I mean, I have no idea.
Know what's in the care plan and what you're required to do when you visit, so that you can prompt the person and avoid asking confusing questions. Someone with dementia may become agitated when they're no longer able to perform intimate tasks for themselves. Maybe you need to help them shower or toilet, and they're unable to express their embarrassment.
You know, I've heard of people being resistant to being showered. Well, you know, you're a care worker, you're a strange person, you're suddenly going to start stripping me and putting me in the shower. Well, I might not be very happy about that. I don't know how other people would feel, but, you know, I'd find that very difficult.
Maintain their privacy as much as possible. Encourage them to do whatever part of the task they can, and talk with them during the task.
Well, I was thinking, as it's such a lovely day, we could maybe go and do some more gardening.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah?
Yes, I sometimes say that dementia is a disease of communication, because it seems to be the big issue for us is not being able to get ourselves understood and to clearly work out what other people are saying to us, because it's fast, the way things come across. It's really hard focusing on a conversation. Obviously, when we're at home, trying to communicate with us or listen to us, make sure that, say, the TV is muted and there isn't radio on in the background, so that it's just one source of noise at once.
Giving him tasks must be done in a very step-by-step process. The instructions can't be too confusing. They have to be clear and concise. So, for instance, if he wants to find the dustpan and broom, and he asks me where the dustpan and broom is, I will say to him, go to the kitchen. And then once he's in the kitchen, I will then say to him, now look beside the fridge. I won't say to him, it's in the kitchen beside the fridge. That will confuse him, because by the time he gets to the fridge, he's forgotten what he's looking for.
Non-verbal communication can be especially important to people with dementia.
Their behaviour was so nice towards him. The care workers, they were just so lovely and welcoming and smiley and warm. And all of these things are really important. Body language was very positive. And they took time to actually listen to him and make him feel valuable and important.
Another strategy we use is memory cards and pictures. Often the clients won't be able to verbally tell us that they want to go to the toilet, they become agitated and they know there's something wrong, so they'll be pacing. So we'll pull out a booklet that we have, and it has pictures of different prompts that when they see photo of the toilet, they'll realise that that's what they want to do. They may not be able to express that verbally, but once they see a picture, then they'll know what it is.
Those are some of the things you can do to reduce behaviours. But how do we need to respond when they happen? Try different strategies to see what works for the individual you're supporting. Let's look at how you can respond to aggression and agitation. If someone's physically aggressive, look after your own safety first. Move out of reach. You may need to leave the person temporarily and come back when they calm down.
Yeah, and he's definitely more agitated.
Call your supervisor.
Right.
If someone's agitated, be calm and don't argue. Try to distract them. As a precaution, make sure you have an escape route from the house. Don't box yourself into a corner.
Very, very handsome couple, aren't they?
We'd have to use activities to distract him. Hanging out the washing, he enjoys doing that. He enjoys working in the vegetable garden.
When a person hallucinates, what they see or hear is real for them. First of all, don't assume that they're hallucinating.
What, behind the door?
Always investigate any suspicion they have to see if it is true. If it's not true, look at the effect it's having on the person. If a delusion or hallucination isn't harming anyone, there's no need to correct them. If it's causing the person distress, acknowledge their feelings and move them away from the source if possible.
Shall we go next door? Tell you what, I'll make us a cup of tea, shall I?
Distract the person with something you know they enjoy.
Oh, is this the book you were telling me about?
One there.
Yeah? Let's have a look. Let's have a look.
Document the incident, the action you took, and whether it worked, and report it to your supervisor. Disinhibited behaviour can include being rude and tactless, swearing, making sexually inappropriate comments, taking your clothes off, or fondling yourself in public.
With the swearing, what I find is if I am swearing because I've dropped something and I'm really upset, Paul said don't use that language, and I find that hard because I haven't got anything left in my head to say. So I feel it's not fair to be, it doesn't sound right, does it? But, you know, because I never used to swear, but, you know, it's all I've got left when I'm really anxious. So perhaps not criticise.
On the way home, when the care worker was driving him home, he said to the care worker he was lonely and would she like to stop and have a little kiss in a park on the side of the road. The care worker distracted Ernie and said we're only friends and started talking about another subject, which then diffused that situation.
Don't overreact. If you need to, gently remind them that it's inappropriate. Distract them and perhaps give them something to fidget with.
Will you look after my car keys for me, please?
If they're in public, perhaps lead them to somewhere more private. Depression affects almost half the people with Alzheimer's disease. So be on the lookout for signs like being unusually withdrawn or unusually emotional, having no appetite and no energy, losing interest in things they usually enjoy, or talking about self-harm or suicide.
I certainly did become very depressed at the beginning, and not surprisingly, because it's a very depressing diagnosis. To me, what the care worker can do is simply be with us and not cheer us up, because we might want to express our feelings, so listen to our feelings, but importantly to be with us, do things with us, engage us in meaningful activities.
The signs of depression can closely resemble those of dementia. It can be really hard to separate the two. Depression can be life-threatening, so report any changes or unusual behaviours immediately. Your supervisor can help them get the treatment that may be needed.
If a care worker notices the client starting to wander, they will contact the care facilitator. Then we would arrange an assessment visit, come out, talk to the family about different products that are available to prevent the client from wandering away or to try to eliminate it.
He becomes very agitated for various reasons throughout the day, but especially at that sundowning period in the very late afternoon, early evening. Sometimes he won't let me, he's not that open to me giving him other things to do and other jobs to do. So that's when I refer to the DVD.
Okay, Ernie, is State of Origin last year's all right?
We have a rugby league DVD that I put on. And Dad used to watch a lot. We used to play a lot of football and he used to watch a lot of football growing up. So it's quite a natural thing for him to sit down and watch a game of rugby league.
Establishing a routine can really help. So can ensuring the person has a quiet time or a short nap of up to 40 minutes after lunch. And there are other things you can try. Increase the person's exposure to natural light during the day. And then at night, close the blinds and reduce the noise to help the person settle.
You could put those on the table for me, please. Thank you.
Encourage the person to help prepare the table for dinner.
There's Rex, Ron.
For some people, soft toys and animals may be comforting, or they may find music soothing. A bath or shower may help. There are lots of resources available online from the Dementia Behaviour Management Advisory Service at dbmas.org.au. Their number is 1800 699 799. Alzheimer's Australia has resources for people caring for someone with dementia. The helpline is 1800 100 500 and the website is packed with useful information. And the ACC learning resources will have links for more information. Always remember to follow your organisation's policies and procedures. In this program, we've identified some common ways that a person's behaviour may change as they adapt to living with dementia. We've looked at what dementia is and why it may be causing a person to behave differently. And we've discussed how to best support a person living with dementia. Everyone's different, so what may work for some may not necessarily work for others. And people change over time as their dementia progresses. They may no longer be able to do the things that they used to, and the strategies that used to work may no longer help. Don't blame yourself and don't be discouraged. Try different strategies. Work with the family and the rest of the care team to find out what helps and share the information.
People with dementia are the unheard. We're often not really listened to. Everything we say or do is seen as part of just having dementia, so it's written off. Oh, she's just, aggressive, or she's apathetic, or she's always been really difficult to deal with. Yet people aren't trying to see through what we're trying to say with our behaviour. That's the key thing.